Chapter 6. On the way. Where? I like reading off my phone. It's easy. I can swerve. The gagging smells in the lower dungeons were as vile as those who were imprisoned there. Unredeemable men and women of all races lived out the rest of their miserable sentences 7 floors below the ground, caged behind a series of no less than 11 locked gates and 7 armed guard stations, wallowing in the filth and enmity that they had created. Grim voices echoed eerily through the maze-like corridors. There was distant coughing and an occasional wail of anguish or insanity. Slimy water dripped from the ceiling and walls of slippery, mossy bedrock. This was the realm of Tungulin's most notorious caged criminals. The perverse, the wicked, and the deadly. There were rats aplenty and foul disease, despite the guards' best efforts to keep some semblance of cleanliness and order. King Tytel Vantu, flanked by his personal knights of the guard, held a kerchief over his nose as he passed the general population quarters toward a specially designed holding room. Gathargo, the wizard, accompanied him, as did Hugart, there in Commander Binder's absence. Vantu entered the room like a storm about ready to burst, facing 5 shackled men standing against the wall. 2 humans, 2 Glocky, and 1 Tiberlian. Although, just a day ago, they had been dressed in the finest clothes of the Tungulin aristocracy and were free to roam the streets, this morning their clothes were torn to rags, and 2 of them were noticeably injured, one of them, Glocky, badly. Yet, King Vantu had no pity for them. He eyed each of them with bitter contempt. "The punishment for an assassination attempt," he said sharply, "is death. Death by beheading." He paced the room from one side to the other, glaring angrily at the collaborators, all of them Gornian born. "The punishment for treason is the same. You are all guilty on both counts, and your executions will be carried out within the hour. Do you have anything to say in your defense?" One man sobbed. 2 stared vacantly. The remaining duo blazed back at him with eyes fearful yet defiant. "No," the single Tiberlian replied for them. "Would it make any difference if we did?" "No," Vantu answered, "just a formality to ask." He squeezed his hand over the wound on his side. He could feel the ooze of blood beneath the bandage. Had he reacted 1 second slower to their attack, the blast would have certainly killed him. His wrists were bruised from the wire they had used to bind him with, and his head sore from the blow that had been intended to render him unconscious. He had proven a greater adversary than they had expected. He edged closer to the would-be assassins, close enough to smell their sweat. He sneered in the face of one of them in particular, the badly wounded Glocky shooter, whose firing hand had been severed in the fray. "Cowards," he hissed at them. "You disgust me. The lot of you. We bring you in from your country and treat you as our own, and provide you with the opportunity to thrive here and lead happy, peaceful lives as free Galgarian men. And still you serve the Guardians. What reward could they have offered you to tempt you to try something so foolish? What could corrupt you? Lies? Offers of riches or lands? Life here is good for good people. You are free men in Tungulin, blessed with liberty and opportunity. Life under the Guardians would be nothing short of slavery and animal servitude." The one closest to Vantu spoke. "You are naive, local king," he said. "Things are going to change soon, continent-wide. It's inevitable. You did not choose. We did not choose. We did not condone or condemn it, but we have been forced to try to make the most of it. The Guardian dominion is inevitable, and it will be better to side with them than rise up against them. Most feel that it will be better to hope for any kind of opportunity from the victors than forgotten promises from the defeated. Know this, said the Tiberlian, it is written that a great leader will arise in the last age of Tears 5:12, a great redeemer, a savior, a God, and that sorrowful age draws to a close even now. He is come. The pendulum has reached its apex and now begins to swing in the other direction. The kingdom of day wanes and will soon become the empire of Lord Gilgahar the Great and his perfect dominion. All signs point to it. The prophecies direct it. He will bring order to his barbaric world, order, discipline, and stability to these unruly wild lands. We will have progress and civilization from sea to crashing sea, roads and bridges, safe transportation for all, equal share of the riches and prosperity for all. The masses believe this. They want this. Recruits are volunteering for military service all across the continent, Bantu. Like us, you will either be a party to this evolution or you shall perish from it, and in time be forgotten to your children's children. You are gullible fools, Hugart replied. You are the ones who shall perish and be forgotten long before you ever see that wretched day. Sire, I do not ask for forgiveness because I know I deserve none, the Tiberlian continued, trembling. His eyes looked lost. He then lowered his voice so that only King Bantu could hear him. The Garnian resolve is strong, my lord, as strong as battle steel. They are persuasive in both strategy and voice. Enough to turn you traitor? Where is your honor, man? Does that not stand for something? They entice your majesty, and they seduce with their offers of power and privilege and prestige. But that is not all. They have dark magic behind them. Powerful dark magic. It enables and fulfills. It emboldens their persuasive tongue. It dominates the direction of reasonable debate with the interpretation of speech. The prisoner most badly injured, the Glanki, who had formerly been a chef in the king's service for over a decade, found the will and strength to speak. And they have allies of which this world has not witnessed in eons. I have seen them in my dreams. Coming, fearful titans that they can call upon at their whim and discretion to do their bidding. Great ancient demons of the dark, of which there is no defense. Demons. The Tiberlian smiled. A bit of insanity crossed over his face. This is true. Tadtel Bantu looked down his nose at the defiant, condemned spy. He pulled back his lips, snarling at his enemy in the traditional Gaithelt manner. Then he turned to Hugart and said, as he departed the chamber, They have lost themselves to madness. Execute them and bury them deep. Tell no one of their fate. They are hereby forgotten. Begin with the injured. Hugart nodded. Gilgahar returns, the Tiberlian called. He has set loose the realm of Morgoth. The Morgothian comes for you all. Bantu left through the security door with Githargo and his knights close by his side. Outside, the elder inner council wizards awaited him, following in tow behind them as they passed. In my very own bedchamber, he snarled contemptuously. Traitors and assassins in my very own bedroom, Githargo. One of them my personal valet of 3 years. How I wish Binder were here. Please tell me good news. Any word on the search party yet? None, sire, Githargo answered, escorting Bantu by the elbow. Yet, the battle has subsided. We suspect that the Garnian warships continue to linger, cloaked and hidden somewhere in the nearby mountains, but they have left the Gogmore injured to the ravenous wolverines. The filthy animals, the king growled. Not even the simple-minded Gogmores deserve such a fate. We must hasten King Day's departure immediately, with or without the wizard. It is not safe for him here anymore. Assemble the crew I've selected. We will send Dedlin after them once he returns. Any word from Jonhausen? He is still missing and cannot be found, Your Highness. Guthargo answered. No one has seen him since the emergency secret council last evening. That concerns me greatly. He did not seem right last night. I fear ill tidings. Things are certainly in disarray this morning, the wizard said, but at least you are alive. Vantu nodded. For the time being, he said, send word via sphere to Sissel, Dindayan, Oleander, Poed, and the City of Gold. Tell them what has transpired here today. It has already gone out by message sphere to those cities and more. Very good. And sire, yes, Guthargo, the Gogmor have begun attacking villagers near the southern wall in retaliation for last night. There are many townsfolk dead and injured. Garwin is blaming us for the decimation of his soldiers. The local guard is holding them back, but we need to send military reinforcements to drive them back out. Vantu nodded. Do it immediately, he ordered. Send two guerrilla squads and troops and a medical rescue unit. Bring in as many townsfolk as we are able. Get them behind our walls. Let's set up temporary shelters for all who need them and make room for everyone. Guthargo signaled to his associates to fulfill Vantu's commands with a nod of his head. It is still an hour before true sunrise, yet this is already a dark day for Tungulin, he said. Vantu mounted the next flight of steps like an athlete half his age. It's a dark day for the entire kingdom, Guthargo. Sire, what of... The old wizard paused as if he did not want to say the word aloud. What of the Morgothian the prisoner spoke of? Vantu's heart grew cold. He stopped at the top of the stairs and turned to his most able wizard, grim and noticeably shaken by that name. He took a brief repose and a deep breath before exhaling. Say nothing of it again to anyone. We shall face that horror if and when it arrives, and not a minute sooner. Next part. The morning suns came up over the mountains in the east as though they were prepared to do battle. It was hot and bright almost immediately, and not a cloud dared show itself for fear it would evaporate instantly into mist. We'd best be getting back, Gabriel said to Day, shielding the morning light from his eyes with the palm of his hand. They had been strolling along the paths of the public gardens for a while to get a breath of fresh air, dressed in common townsfolk attire to keep from attracting attention, but now stepped down the narrow stone stairway that led to the busy market thoroughfare, stretched out along the myriad of streets, far below them in multi-leveled tiers. He had a sturdy brace on his injured leg, which caused him to limp and occasionally stagger, but his recovery was well underway. Every step showed signs of progress. I sensed the need for haste this morning. There's a bad vibration in the air. Day's spirits had been down from the moment he had risen from a sleepless night's repose. His eyes were affixed on the ground before his heavy feet, his hands deep in his pockets. I shouldn't have let him go, he said quietly. He had repeated those sentiments repeatedly all morning. I had him right here and I let him go before we ever had a chance to converse. I knew better, Gabriel. At the base of the market stairs, they mingled in with the flow of the crowd, heading back toward the palace of King Vantu. Gabriel carefully led the way through the populous streets, deflecting overly aggressive solicitors, trying to ply their wares at every step and turn. He was alert and cautious, watching everyone that passed him with a sharp eye, even though it was probably safer for them there in the public streets than in the king's royal court that day. No one would expect them out mingling among the commoners. Pasted freshly to stone obelisks along the outskirts of the landscape promenade were royal proclamations from King Vantu's office announcing the reinstatement of the volunteer Royal Knights of Galgaraya. Young men continued to gather around the posts, reading the information with interest and a bit of trepidation. A mild electricity was abuzz in the conversation in the streets and pubs. Gabriel and Day passed across the rim of the outer wall of the fourth ground-level garden, a terrace that overlooked many square miles of tilled farm acreage, and passed into the bustling livestock market. The rich, fertile odor of the domestic beasts rose from the pens and stables. Various breeds of cattle, sheep, deer and goats, oxen, ponies, and domestic unicorn, asses, rama, Multon, and pasture buffalo. Closer at hand were the small domestic breeds being bought, sold, and traded. Chicken, geese, dove, turkey, rabbit, ground pig, several varieties of duck, and colorful gurro hens from Haas. Nearby, a brazen pig roasted over a hot pit. The delicious aroma of beer and cooking meat was a welcome reprieve from the pungent dung of the barnyard. Do you think he's dead? Who? Devlin? Devlin's not dead, Gabriel said. He's fashionably late, as wizards are prone to be. He'll be back. If not this morning, then this afternoon, nightfall, at the latest. He's probably busy doing, wizardly things. Who knows with these guys? There's no need to worry, though, I'm telling you. Devlin Dane strikes me as one who can take care of himself. He no doubt has the 9 lives of a cat. Unless 8 have been spent already, the boy said, turning to face the new sons. The silver morning light brightened his unblemished, youthful face. There were no wrinkles yet around his watery slate blue-gray eyes, no worry lines that long years have a tendency to draw out. But Gabriel saw a burden there, nonetheless, back behind those eyes, a weight of great responsibility beginning to now take its toll. I would hate to have to come this far and sacrifice this much to have this quest now dead in the water. Gabriel paused momentarily to observe an anxious crowd gathering ahead of them. Well, if I've learned anything, there's always more than one solution to every problem. If Devlin knows where this stone is, chances are so will others. Perhaps he's spoken to others about it. Have hope. The day's young and full of promise. Castle folk were busy clustering together along the northern walls on all levels, watching something that was going on beyond the castle reach. Whatever it was clearly distressing. The mixed murmurs sounded troubled. Fortunately, Day was preoccupied and did not notice the commotion. Let's get back to the depot, Gabriel said, guiding him by the shoulder away from it. They passed back inside the market gate and up toward the 5th level toward the Skycraft depot. There's an old overused saying that I still find true more often than not. Things must be worse before they can get better. Next part. The 10th ground level was a mass of panicked Tungulinians. From his balcony suite, high within the royal tower terrace, King Vantu watched them swarming below him. He was so provoked and angered, as they were even more so, for out beyond the wheat and cornfields of Tungulin, less than 100 feet above the Galothian forest, were 2 glistening, brazen black Garnian warships, poised like 2 great massive birds of prey, hovering on a warm, hazy updraft, missile chutes wide open and heated for firing. One of them, as the silver Garnian script on the bow revealed, was aptly named the Mount of Steel, and the other, in fiery red script, the Godstrike 5. The claws on Vantu's 4-fingered hands gripped and scraped the rail. As he gripped it, he had, only minutes before their appearance, sent out the 3rd search party of the morning after Devlin, Binder, and Dreher Freygood. Things were certainly speeding up since the council the night before, and he found himself caught up in this unexpected whirling dervish of a storm, quite unprepared. It seemed like with each passing minute, there were new dark developments to contend with. Yet, remarkably, despite his injuries and lack of sleep, Vantu's mind was acute and sharp. His body invigorated. His heart swelled with determination. The heat of battle was obviously upon him. From above and on both sides, a regatta of 7 silver-white Tungulinian warships advanced slowly in the direction of the enemy warships, descending to strategically position themselves directly between the Garnians and the castle city, halting above the golden-crested wheat fields protectively before their great king. They were sleek, polished, streamlined warcraft, large and ferocious in appearance. The cheers from the Tungulinians perched upon the walls rose to such a tumult that it caused goosebumps to ride up King Vantu's arms and neck. It was out of his hands now, this confrontation. Whatever was to be would be. It was up to the battle-seasoned warship admirals now to answer this Garnian threat as only they knew best. Despite counsel by his advisors who bade him remain somewhere safely hidden, Vantu had decided instead to face his enemy forthright. His inner council warriors and wizards surrounded him protectively. From one of Vantu's foremost Tungulinian warships, a small delivery pod was ejected and jettisoned toward the Garnian ships. It held the heads of the 5 would-be assassins of the king. A larger spherical pod was released from the foremost enemy ship to intercept it. "Your Highness," a voice said from behind him. Vantu turned to find Hugart bowing. "Good news, sire. Commander Binder has returned from the forest, and he is on his way here now." "Excellent, excellent. And Dedlin?" "Drer Freygood has returned as well, but there is no news yet of the wizard, Dedlin Dane. He did not return with them, just the 2. "I see," he said, deeply concerned. Through a pair of scanners, he watched as the Godstrike 5 intercepted the funeral pod with a crane beneath its hull and pull it on board. "Find Prince Gabriel and King Day at once. Assemble everyone at the depot immediately. Ready or not, it is time for them to depart." Hugart bowed. "Yes, sire, at once," he said, and made his way from the suite. A low-frequency, reverberating horn blast emitted from the Mount of Steel, the sound so loud that it shook the castle city walls like an earthquake, rattling windows, mortar, and loose stones to crumble, causing dust to rise and deafening all who were there listening. Afterward, an eternity seemed to pass as anticipation swelled. Then through the scanners, King Vantu detected a small sky sled detached from a breach in the base of the forward hull. There were 3 men on board the sled. No flag was flown, so the intention of this parley could only be guessed. They flew incredibly fast and low, brushing the tips of the long grasses of the outlying fields, heading fearlessly toward Vantu's Tungulinian warships. 2 of the men, by their dress, were Garnian soldiers, large and battle-ready. The third one, however, standing on the bow, was smaller in stature, presenting himself, no doubt, as the Garnian mouthpiece for this morning's standoff. The sky sled first approached the foremost Tungulinian warship, slowed and wheeled to a halt less than 100 yards from the bow. Vantu was unable to discern much from that distance. Then, 2 Tungulian fighter craft launched from one of the warships and advanced to meet the Garnian party midway. Cautiously, with their weapons drawn at the ready, the 3 aircraft drew together midfield to confer. The conference between them was surprisingly short. The 3 Garnians voluntarily surrendered their weapons, and their small craft was securely attached between the 2 larger Tungulinian fighter craft with sturdy plasteel lines. Together, they eased forward toward Vantu's balcony suite for a parley. As they approached, King Vantu was both surprised and distraught to find that the lone figure standing with the Garnians was none other than Saber Johnhausen, the man who had been in charge of the Tungulian police for the past decade. Inconceivably, Johnhausen was, in fact, another dubious traitor. The sky sled drew close enough to the tower so that words could be spoken between them, but still far enough away that Vantu could be protected by firepower and the magic of his wizards. The Gaithote king shook with rage. Saber Johnhausen, I do hope that you are a prisoner of the Guardians and have not gone over to them of your own accord, he called. The 5 men you executed, why send their heads to us? The man called back, his voice sounding different now, in an accent that Vantu had never heard him use before. They were not ours. They are Gornian born. You have less than 1 minute's time to speak your mind, traitor. At that time, I will give the order for you and your 2 escorts to be dispatched and your warships blown from the sky. First of all, Your Highness, I am no traitor. I am a lifelong Garnian patriot. I am Garnian born and bred, Johnhausen declared. I've not worn a soldier's uniform in some time, but I still have some value to the power in Garn. I am nearly 300 years old, Vantu, blessed with long life by powers you dare not know. And in those 3 centuries, I've only spent the last 30 with you in Tungulin, gathering vital information for my homeland. Even before that, I traveled all over this kingdom, doing various deeds for the cause, mostly testing the political climate and gathering intelligence of interest. You've been invaluable to me, and I thank you. Secondly, do not be a fool. Do you not see that I've come forward to you unarmed? That is because I know that we have the upper hand here. Should you have us dispatched, the Mount of Steel and the Godstrike 5 will open fire on the populace of Tungulin gathered right there upon the walls. No doubt your warships would then certainly shoot us down, but not before we've unloaded 10 to 20 powerful missiles into your precious city and the thousands of onlookers I see before me. Then, by tomorrow morning, 100 more ships will be here. We will destroy your city in 1 day. Tungulin will be little more than a great pile of smoky rubble in the hollow of this valley by this time tomorrow night. That is a certainty, but it does not need to happen. It is entirely up to you. Vantu felt his left eyelid twitching nervously. Do you want to end this standoff peacefully, or do you want to die? Johnhausen called loudly to the king. No battle, no bloodshed. The terms are quite simple. We want the boy and the key. Then we will go. That's it. Just the boy and the key. You know that I know he is here. A growl came from deep within the king's chest. Consider this carefully, King Vantu. I know we are outnumbered, but the weapons on board these 2 warships are unlike anything you've ever seen. We've not been idle since the last Great War, Johnhausen forewarned. We have advanced our technology beyond your wildest nightmares. Just give us the boy and the key now, and we'll go away peacefully. I beg you, for old time's sake, choose peace here today. Look around you now, the king cried out in response. Look at the beautiful morning sky above you, and the grasses and trees and these great city walls. Look upon them well, for these are the last things you will ever lay your traitorous eyes upon, Saber Johnhausen, or whatever your true name may be. Not only do I dismiss your threats, I mock your terms. I am King Tytal Vantu, a free man until death, ruler of the great city of Tungulin and the territory of Galgaraya, and neither I nor my people fear you, your threats, or your dogs of war. Johnhausen, know that you have served your master for the last time here today. Don't be a fool, Vantu, Johnhausen bellowed back. Do you believe me stupid enough to stand here before you unprepared? I'm offering you and your citizens mercy. There are scores of weapons trained directly on you. If you do not fear the 100 ships surely here by tomorrow, then how about 1,000 by the week's end? I assure you this is the truth. Call up the boy and live another day. Give your people another day. Your parley is now up and you have failed. Farewell, Vantu cried out, and then, almost as though by some magic in his words, the two Garnian warships began to quiver and dance spastically above the trees. Popping explosions could be heard coming from within them, and a great tearing, wrenching sound. Then blasts of fire belched through vents in their sides. The mount of steel began a slow spin down toward the forest. It exploded just above the treetops, raining fire and blue oil into the jungle below. Then the Godstrike Five followed suit. The crowds along the walls cheered at the spectacle and praised their brave king, repeatedly chanting his name. Sabert Zonhausen, witnessing the destruction of the two Garnian warships, stood there aghast and suddenly speechless. "Behold your mighty warships," the king mocked. "How is this possible?" Zonhausen cried, terror now in his quaking voice. "It was not me or my wizards," Guthargo explained from behind the king, as perplexed and amazed as was King Vantu. "But blessings be, I'd say they were both sabotaged somehow from within." Vantu felt as if he had just witnessed some kind of a karmic miracle. "We are truly blessed by the gods this day," he murmured. "Excuse me, sire," someone said from behind him. Vantu turned to find Commander Binder advancing through the room like an angry bull. He brought a large blast rifle up to his shoulder and quickly aimed. "I apologize for being tardy," he said, and fired 3 shots. Zonhausen's body exploded into pieces, and the two Garnians did likewise. They all tumbled from the unbalanced sled, falling 100 feet to the hard ground below. "Apology accepted," Vantu said, slapping him on the shoulder. He turned toward his window. "Fire upon those ships," he cried to his generals. "Destroy them. There will be no prisoners. We will show Garn what they can henceforth expect." The word traveled fast. Within moments, the Garnian warships were bombarded by heavy missile fire, the likes of which had never been witnessed by anyone there before. A square mile of Galathian forest was soon aflame, the smoke billowing toward the heavens like a pyre fit for the gods. "Zonhausen was right, though," a frazzled Binder told his king. "There will be many more Garnian warships to come. Many more." We'll pause it right there. The chapter's long enough to be divided into parts, so that was part 1. Part 2 will come tomorrow.